I'm Steve Wong from VMware, based in California, and I'm co-chair of the VMware SIG. My co-presenter Fabio here, he's suffering from jet lag coming from Italy. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Fabio Rapposelli, work with Steve, VMware, co-chair of the VMware SIG. Just getting started with the SIG. So we wanted to get you here today to run an introduction on what the SIG is all about.
Okay, let's get started here. So first of all, I'm not going to make any assumptions. So I was just in a similar intro session for the storage SIG, and somebody in the audience had a question at the end: what is a SIG? So just to calibrate everybody, on many open source projects, including Kubernetes, when these get big, the project gets organized into special interest groups. And this is just to accommodate an aspect of human nature and communication that, once you get over a certain size group, it's really hard to expect to have communication, and it's better to break activity into focus groups to accomplish tasks, and maybe have these at a size where it's actually possible to recognize people and know their name and have real interactive activity. So that's the purpose of arranging SIGs on Kubernetes. These SIGs are intended not just for developers, although some of them have different mixes than others. So they're intended for participation by both the developers writing code as well as users, documentation writers, training authors. So they work best when you actually get a variety of contributors. What is the VMware SIG in specific? Well, everything about this is new because it just started a few weeks ago. But this is focused on improving the Kubernetes experience for users running Kubernetes on top of VMware infrastructure. So what would you get out of it if you're one of these users? Well, you can expect to get coaching on best practices, problem resolution, and it's an opportunity to participate in feature roadmap. As you use this or look at using it, unlike commercial software, the way the open source arena works is that you have a direct opportunity to submit your features and discuss them with architects and developers. If we have developers in the audience, and I see a few, this is a forum to plan our activity, to organize, coordinate, and prioritize, because we need to typically sync up with Kubernetes releases and the quarterly aspirational release cadence. And as we go through this release cycle, this SIG will become a forum to monitor our progress towards successfully keeping on track to align with the Kubernetes release cycle and to engage in collaborative development, which means dividing up the work and making sure that we're going to fulfill whatever promises we make to the larger Kubernetes project in terms of getting things done when we say it's going to get done. How can you participate if you're not a member now? The first step is to join the Google Plus group. By the Kubernetes community standards, this isn't an option because there are many shared documents, and being a member actually links your ID to give you appropriate access to be able to edit documents and get informed of activities. So the link is here. And by the way, this presentation has been already uploaded to that SCADA site for KubeCon. So you should be able to get this later, but of course you can take a picture. And I'm going to close with this slide at the end too. So if you're not in there, if you open this page, there'll be a blue join group button. It is localized, so if your native language is non-English, it might say something else, but for me it says join group. Second step is to join the Kubernetes Slack channel. So there's a vector to join the overall Kubernetes Slack. If you've never used Slack, that's divided into channels, and there is a dedicated channel for the VMware SIG. So you would want to do that. This is a great venue for just asking questions and getting visibility of those questions. I'll caution you that people in this group are dispersed worldwide. So you can ask a question in there, but don't be surprised if it doesn't take a day's cycle or on a weekend, a couple days cycle, because people who participate in this aren't necessarily located where you are. So an interesting aspect of this is that we have contributors in many time zones in the world. Then finally, we have bi-weekly Zoom meetings. By bi-weekly, this means every 2 weeks, not twice a week, just in case there's any confusion about that. And these are synced. Apologies to the European audience. My co-presenter here, I think, has mixed opinions about this, but kind of to align with the Western US dominance of the Kubernetes project. Doesn't bother me, by the way, I live there, but 11 a.m. Pacific and whatever that translates to in your time. So we have these meetings, and these meetings are, both the video is recorded as well as the notes taken during the meeting, and there's a vector for you to influence the agenda on the meeting. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Fabio, and the best way to get started is to probably just open the notes for the meetings.
So all the meeting notes are in a shared Google Doc. So as Steve mentioned before, if you join the Google group, you will automatically get editing access to this document. So once you're part of the group, you can come over here and add whatever topic you want to the next agenda. So for example, this is a living document, so this is getting edited, during especially during the Zoom meetings. So the next meeting is next week, so May 10th. Just for the European audience, it's 18 UTC time, so you can translate to your own time zone. So it's usually around 8 for Central European, which is my time zone, 8 p.m.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to bring up one other thing that aligns with the governance standards for Kubernetes. So these meetings are public and recorded. So
Yes.
whether you like that or not, that is the standards of Kubernetes.
Yeah, we usually make an announcement before starting the recording every time, but just in case, if you're not feeling okay with showing your face in the meeting, you can either just listen, stop your video, do not talk, it's fine. But if you want to engage, you're going to be recorded. That's the only thing. Privacy matters, right? So just be aware of that. So we have agenda here, and usually at the beginning of the week we start, populating the agenda. But if you have any topic you want to discuss, you should feel free to, come here, add your item to the discussion part, or add your item to something you want to discuss, something you want to propose. I don't know, a new feature or something. Most of the time, what we like to have is if you want to discuss a feature or if you want to discuss an issue you have, you may want to file an issue on the Kubernetes GitHub page first, and then reference that number in the meeting notes so we can discuss and have something already in there.
I'd say, here's another thought, Fabio. I think I'd encourage people, if you want to, you can add your agenda item a minute before the meeting starts. But if you'll allow us a few days, we may be able to go recruit people who are more familiar with that issue for you, because Fabio and I know a lot of people working on the project. So I'll just throw that out there.
I just wanted to go back to the slides. I don't know where they are.
The next tab over.
Oh, okay. Where is it? Oh, here.
Yeah. There you go. Oops.
What happened?
You closed
Windows.
it.
I'll leave it to you. I'm sorry. I use a Mac. I'm sorry. There you go. You saved the day once again. So as we were saying, meetings are recorded. So if we go to this link, there's a playlist that lists all the 3 meetings that we had so far. As you can see, they grew in time. The first one was just half an hour. We usually book an entire hour for the meeting. We don't necessarily use the entire hour, but sometimes when there's a demo and there are more questions than usual, it can stretch to an hour. So the last meeting we have last week, in fact, it's an hour long. So, and there's a good demo if you guys want to check out. So look for this link in the deck. Check out the recordings if you're interested. There's a bunch of things we have discussed last week that may be of interest for anybody who runs Kubernetes on vSphere. So make sure to check that out. And let me see if I can start a presentation again. Okay. And as I was saying, we are seeking content from you. So if you join the SIG, you're a group member, you can propose any agenda items. As I was saying, you just open up the document, you go there, you add your item to the list, you make sure you attend, and we can discuss that item at the next meeting. So anything that has to do with the integration of Kubernetes and VMware platforms in general, so not necessarily just vSphere. So even if you have an issue with Minikube and Fusion or Minikube and Workstation, feel free to join the SIG and talk about that. Or if you have an issue with a vSphere cloud, a vCloud provider that you're using, feel free to join and talk about that. So it's not just for vSphere, it's for all the VMware platforms as a whole. So as I was saying, deployments on-premise, on cloud, doesn't matter. If it involves anything that has to do with VMware, feel free to join and ask questions or discuss. And if you have any type of best practice that you find out and you want to share with a larger group, you're very welcome to do so. What is not appropriate for the SIG? So, well, first of all, we have a code of conduct, which is the same one as the Kubernetes project. So we just inherit the code of conduct from Kubernetes. What is discouraged? I want to say it's completely inappropriate, but discussing anything that is a bug or a new feature request that is not an existing issue in the GitHub tracker, we may not want to discuss that because most of those information end up being just recorded in a video stream, so it's not as easy to remember all those details. So we prefer to have that filed beforehand. So before discussion, you file a GitHub issue, we discuss that, we track with comments in the issue, so everything is tracked in a single place. If you have a problem with a VMware product that has Kubernetes in it, if it's something that has a more broader scope and it's not just a product issue, then it's fine. If it's a product issue, you may want to refer to VMware support and not, come to the SIG and ask for a resolution of that problem, because we're not a support group. We're more like a community end of that group. And there's a topic that is not covered by VMware, so it doesn't have to do with VMware. There's probably a more specialized SIG that you might want to refer to. I would say that an exception for this will be something that has to do, that is a cross SIG issue. Maybe it's an issue with networking, but it has to do with VMware, so it's a specific networking issue that you have on a VMware platform. Then we will be, delighted to, sponsor that issue and work with the other SIGs to resolve the problem. Okay, so if you have a networking problem with VMware, feel free to join the SIG, discuss that, and we can facilitate the cross SIG communication and resolve that issue. Plans. So initially, the first project that the SIG has in mind is to start working on the re-architecture of the cloud provider for vSphere. So vSphere Cloud Provider is right now in tree inside Kubernetes core. Kubernetes itself is being restructured, so Kubernetes wants to remove all the provider-dependent code that is in the Kubernetes core repo into separate out-of-tree repos. And the cloud provider is the first attempt to actually change that the model. So we have, as I was saying, we have many other SIGs that are interacting with the cloud provider. So as I was saying, network, node, scheduling, storage, testing, many others. So those topics as a whole are owned by different SIGs, but if there's anything that has to do and it's a cross-SIG problem, feel free to talk with us. Our plans for 1.11 are actually pretty small. Unfortunately, we, as a SIG, came out a little bit late for the 1.11 feature freeze. So we have a couple of features we want to get in 1.12, but they're not making the cut this time. So for 1.11, the goals that we have is, from a design perspective, we want to design and scope the work that is required to move the cloud provider out of 3. We want to have a design discussion. We want to have an execution plan. And we want to have documentation around it. In fact, there's a KEP proposal out there, which is under review right now, to kickstart a sub-project in the SIG that this project will own the cloud provider code that will be sitting out of 3. And hopefully we want to shoot for an implementation of this cloud provider out of 3 for 1.12. Another thing we're working on is, given that CNCF has this nice cross-cloud initiative, which you may or may not have heard of, I just want to bring up the dashboard here so you can see what I'm talking about, maybe. Okay. So this is a nice dashboard that shows all the projects under CNCF. And you can see there's a platform here. So there's many platforms. And there's a release, a stable release and a head release, and it's being deployed on every cloud here that is available. So you can run CI jobs and test all these softwares here. So there's Kubernetes, obviously, but there's also Prometheus, Core DNS, Fluentd, Linkerd, ONAP, and so on. So we want to show up here. So VMware has decided to sponsor some capacity in order to run these jobs. So we're working with cross-cloud and CNCF to make sure that VMware shows up here. So this is another project that we're following as a SIG. It's just getting started. So if you're interested in looking at this is actually being provisioned through Terraform. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the back end, and it's all open source. If you're interested in looking at this problem and join the SIG and work on this, feel free. We're happy to have you. And okay. And we have Minikube support for VMware Fusion and Workstation. That is actually, right now it's out there. The PR is being reviewed. It's just blocked by the CI system because, Kubernetes and CNCF want to have a CI system in place before actually merging new code into the repo. So once the CI is up, this will be merged and it will show up in the next version of Minikube. So I was talking about the cloud provider. So the refactor of the cloud provider is some sort of I would say tectonic shift in Kubernetes, because the current cloud provider structure, as you can see, there are many touching points here. So the cloud is sitting here, the platform has many touching points with Kube Controller Manager, API Server, and the kubelet themselves. So the refactor that is happening, and partly has already happened inside Kubernetes, is to move to a model where there's only a Cloud Controller Manager, which is some sort of separate binary, so it's not compiled directly into any of the Kubernetes binaries. And this takes care of talking to the cloud and implements an interface that Kube Controller Manager and a Kube API Server can understand and talk to the controller manager. So our goal here is to create a Cloud Controller Manager for vSphere, but that will be sitting out of 3 and not inside the Kubernetes repo. And this is the CNCF cross-cloud CI that I've just shown you. So we're looking forward to have a vSphere as a first platform for VMware here to show up. And as we were saying before, we are hiring, as in we're looking for people that want to join the SIG, but not also as just a member. We're actually looking, actively looking for end users, the one that understand Kubernetes, that maybe started working with Kubernetes a while ago, and they're running Kubernetes on VMware platforms. If you're interested in, getting involved and, be a co-chair of the SIG, please talk to us, join the meetings. We can definitely talk about that. We're looking forward to have an end user representation in the chairs. And if you're interested in what the chair role should be, you can find a link here in the slides. And this is a recap of all the various links. Do you want to add something, Steve, or we can open up the floor for questions?
No, I think you covered it well. So
Okay.
does anybody have any questions or just ideas, suggestions? Throw it out there, just like a SIG meeting.
You do have suggestions? Suggestions? Yes.
Yeah, regarding the cloud provider,
Yes.
at the moment it's not possible to use the read-write X on vSphere,
Mm-hmm.
which is pain.
Okay. Yes.
Is there something
So there are many issues with
Maybe
cloud
repeat
provider.
it because the
Yes.
recording won't pick up his
Yes.
question.
I would say that I will summarize your question with there are several outstanding issues in the cloud provider today that make using the cloud provider on vSphere not a pleasant experience, right? Okay. Yes, we are aware that there are many issues. In fact, the reason why we're trying to bring this is to put some governance around working on a cloud provider. Otherwise, it's just some code that is sitting there and somebody, people have issues, somebody finds a bug, somebody files a bug, and maybe somebody will fix it eventually. So the idea is to provide some framework around it and own that code in a way where we can triage bugs and we can discuss them in the open with, during the meetings and so on. So by all means, if you have any issues with that, feel free to file a bug. There's actually a label now in the Kubernetes repo, so you can run a command in the comment /sig VMware, and the issue will be tagged with a VMware label on GitHub, and it will show up in our dashboard, which is basically tracking all the issues that have to do with VMware.
I think we had a question in the back.
Do you want to get closer and bring the microphone?
I'm not too sure if you covered this 20 years ago.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm not too sure if you covered this. I was joining your group and everything in Slack. But what's the best way for a newcomer to join on board with the VMware SIG group? Is it just to come to the meetings and start to learn? Or
Well, the
any
first step is
documentation?
to join the group on the Google Plus group. So it's just find that URL, which was in the deck, and just click join.
I did that.
Okay. And then, yeah, I would say if you want to be interactive, just join the Zoom meeting, and you can start by listening. If you really want to catch up, I don't think you have missed a whole lot because we're so new, but there's 3 recordings up on YouTube.
Okay.
And if you want to decide whether it's worth investing your time, maybe look at it, although I'd caution you that the first one we were still learning. We really are one of the newest SIGs out there.
Okay.
So the first meeting maybe wasn't all that representative, so it was kind of a bunch of inside talk on how we should get organized. And then they're getting better. So the last one is the one I'd recommend looking at. There were some questions by an actual user about best practices, and that's how you could get involved. If you're looking to get involved as a developer, we'd be happy to take resource there too. And if you're really trying to get started in the career, I think the best jobs to take on are actually volunteering to sign up for documentation issues, because as you improve documentation and write collateral material, you force yourself to learn kind of a broad swath and really get the big picture and learn it well. So that's a great way to get started that I typically recommend, because we occasionally have people who are interns or students who want to get involved with this. So it kind of depends what you're looking for, but those are all ways to get involved.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the advice.
Sure.
Hi. So are you guys focused on running on vSphere or on vCloud or on premise or off premise, or what? Where are you going first? What's your
All of
primary
those
focus?
really. If it
You can't solve
is-
all of them at once. Where are you going to start?
No,
Right now. vSphere right now because it's going to be vSphere right now because it's, I would say it's the one that has many outstanding issues. As I was saying before, the cloud provider is there, has been there for a while. It gained significant technical depth. And that's why we're going after that first, because it's out there, people are using it, it's not a pleasant experience. We want to fix that. So that's why we're going after that
And
first.
we don't have an option. I mean, Kubernetes itself is re-architecting. So, we could get away with not addressing it for a couple of releases, but eventually I have to assume somebody from some of the overseers on the Kubernetes steering committee are going to come after us if we were to ignore it. Now, this is speaking that that's our first focus for the development community aspect of the Kubernetes SIG. I would say that right now, if you're a user coming with issues, feature requests, we're all over. We'll take anything right now, day one. But I'm not promising we'll resolve those issues, but go ahead and let us know now. Because I think between Fabio and I, we've got pretty broad contacts, and we can do research and get it kicked off. So I'm willing to take on the whole big picture of if it's it has to be Kubernetes, and it has to be running on some VMware infrastructure, whatever that is. But it could be public cloud, it could be on-prem, could be hybrid where you got some of each, could be vSphere, or it could be workstation. We'll take it all. Anything to add, Fabio?
No, I think that covered pretty much. I mean, we're all about VMware platforms in general, so not necessarily tied to vSphere. But obviously vSphere is a big part of it, right?
Yeah. Anybody else got a question or comment? Okay, it looks like we're ending just a slight bit early. You can get some lunch, but we'll hang around if somebody wants to discuss anything you didn't want to talk about privately. And I'm here all week. You can find me or ask somebody in the VMware booth to track me down. But thanks for coming.
Thank you.